Thank you for joining Bowtech Live and the Nate Zielinski Podcast. This is all about education, scouting, building patterns, and being successful on public land in a do-it-yourself style hunt. A huge thanks to all of our partners, including Bowtech Archery, Diamond Archery, Excalibur Crossbows, Vortex Optics, Ford Trucks, Slumberjack, Bass Pro Shops of Denver, Mr. Heater, Turkey Creek Studios, Ripcord Rest, Tight Spot Quivers, and Black Gold Sights. Join us every Monday night live at 7 p.m. Pacific on the Bowtech Archery or Nate Zielinski Facebook pages, bowtecharchery.com, and or the Nate Zielinski YouTube channel. And remember, tag and share this live feed with your friends and bring your big game questions. And here's your host, Nate Zielinski. Right. Cameraman says we're good. Guys, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Hopefully you've been following along. Hopefully you're out there in the woods working on your scouting, getting prepared for this upcoming season. And hopefully this is literally the season among seasons for you. Hopefully everybody's a little bit more successful. Again, if nothing else, hopefully we're getting you amped up and excited. There's no doubt hunting season is here. I spent a lot of time in the woods this last week or so. I've been on some sheep hunts, spent a lot of time at 14,000 feet. I've had blizzard conditions multiple times so far this week. So even though it's August and warm in a lot of portions of the country, certain portions of the country are not warm. So it's been exciting to be out there in the woods. Had a great close encounter on a giant sheep. Again, actually hunting with a friend. I didn't have the tag. Tagging along with him up there in the high country of Colorado. And got to the point where we literally did a 3-hour crawl on our back to get on this big sheep, big full curl animal. Got so close to making the shot and had to draw basically laying up to take the shot and just couldn't quite make it happen, but it's been awesome. So a lot of animals out there. Huge thanks. If you're just joining me, I'm Nate Zielinski. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We got some new pages we're going live to. Obviously, a huge thanks to Bowtech Archery for letting us go live on their couldn't do it without you. So again, huge thanks to Bowtech. You probably also could be watching this on the Diamond Facebook as well as the Bowtech website. You could be joining it from new platform. So huge thanks to Sun Enterprise, obviously our main partner there for ATVs and getting us in and out of the woods. So huge thanks to Sun, Bass Pro Shop, Gold, everybody else out there that's been putting this live. Nate Zielinski, Tightline Outdoors, all those Facebook pages there. So huge thanks for everybody to watch us wherever you're watching us from tonight. Hopefully tonight is a great episode for you. So tonight we're going to be talking about shot placement. We're going to be talking about muzzleloading stuff, archery equipment. We're going to talk about putting big game animals on the ground. So we're really going to put a big focus on actually shooting these animals and kind of walk you through the process of good shots, bad shots. I've been a part of a little over 250 elk kills. A handful of mule deers and minks at 250, but a lot of deer, a lot of elk, a lot of bears, a lot of lions here in the Western United States. So we're going to walk you through those big game harvests and what we think is a good shot and a bad shot. So hopefully everybody follows along, and hopefully this can help you out and make you more successful. Again, talking about things that I've been doing this last week. Obviously, the sheep hunt had a lot of close encounters. Everything is tougher in that high country. 50 to 80 mile an hour wind type stuff. So a lot of high winds, a lot of cold. It's hard to get within that close range. Where the average person, let's say you shoot 60 yards when you're covered. A lot of times in that high country and 60 mile an hour winds, you're limited down to 20 yards or 30 yards because of the extreme conditions. So I had a ball up there chasing those big sheep, and in normal conditions, had a lot of opportunities. In the extreme conditions, had a lot of close calls that in the right condition would have led to kills. But due to the extreme conditions, we didn't quite get that on the ground. So that's been exciting. Other things we've been seeing, the bulls now, where I've been hunting in most places, are going hardhorn. There's a few big bulls in velvet right now, but for the most part, most elk and most of your big bulls are hardhorn. So that's exciting to see. The second those bulls go hardhorn, love is in the air. Testosterone's flowing. Things are right around the corner from happening. These bulls are starting to get agitated with each other. There's a lot of sparring going on, and really, from the second they go hardhorn, you're going to start to lay basically the parts and pieces to your hunting season in place. You're starting to see a major role of dominance. You're starting to see, which bulls are going to be a herd bull, which bulls are going to be satellites, which one are going to be in that in between. That's kind of a fun zone. Obviously, you have young bulls that are always going to be a satellite bull for until they grow up, and then a couple years, you have your big dominant bulls, which are usually always going to hold a harem. Then you have those in-between bulls that are, big enough to hold small harems, in the right situation hold harems, but they're not quite that giant bull. Those are the bulls that are great to work. They'll come into a call. They're super aggressive. They're just trying to make their stamp in life. So again, the bulls are hardhorn. We're excited to see it. we're starting to really take all our scouting and seeing exactly how it's going to come to play. So great to see the bulls hardhorn. As far as other patterns we've been seeing, we have a bear tag in early September. Me personally, that I'm going to be hunting. Our bears right now are on berries hard. It's that time of year where the raspberry bushes are in full bloom. We're starting to see a ton of raspberries. So we're really hunting steep drainages, steep, rocky, moist type areas where we have these big raspberry patches. And it's great to see the bears are super active on these raspberries. So it's fairly predictable. It's nice to see these bears in a very predictable. They're not just roaming. They're not just scavenging. They're really on a pattern right now. So they're going to go right from raspberries, generally speaking, into acorns. So that's kind of the pattern as we go into this hunting. I like some great setups, some cooler areas with good raspberry patches. And when these bears are really starting to up that digestion with eating the raspberries, they start to drink a little bit more often. So we're seeing good patterns of bears going from berries to water on a daily basis. So excited to start seeing a little bit more on black bear I'll be hunting. So I'll bring you that footage as we get into the woods for those. But excited to see some sort of pattern and a little bit more regular activity on the bears. We've been seeing a lot of bears throughout the season, but a lot of stuff on trail late it. Not so much daytime activity and not patternable daytime activity. But excited to see the patterns unfolding on the black bears early and late in the evening. Again, just the first light and the last light of the day. So regardless, excited to see that. The pronghorns, I have a pronghorn tag. I'll actually be joining me live here in the next couple days on a pronghorn hunt. We actually, tomorrow is the opening pronghorn here in Colorado. A lot of people are going to be in the woods. We're excited to see that. I actually found another big buck and another big bull, a mule deer and a bull. I'm actually missing opening day of pronghorn tomorrow to go scout these bulls that I saw. I saw this big buck and this bull actually on opposite sides of a drainage. I mean, it's crazy to have two big animals like that, like a monster muley and a monster bull so close together. But I was actually scouting them. I saw them with the spotting scope from a long distance. So I saw these animals from 5 miles away, and they look great. So I'm actually going in tomorrow to investigate. So I'm actually passing up that opening pronghorn to do that. But the pronghorns are same type thing. We're starting to see these animals where there was a lot of bucks in groups. They were really bachelored up. Now we're starting to see those bucks kind of separate as we start getting to fall. Night temperatures are dropping, getting very cool. Daytime temperatures are down a little bit. So really the pronghorns are starting to separate, starting to move around a lot, which we like to see. We hate it when there's 15 bucks in one little area. It's hard to sneak up on that many eyes, and if you booger that, you booger the whole group. And so if they're broken up individually, essentially you could have 15 hunts instead of having one hunt. So we're really excited to see those pronghorns breaking up. So we'll bring you that footage this week. So again, make sure you watch that. If you text watch to 313131, we will text you live when we're going live from the field. So make sure you do that. If anybody's out there is not familiar with that, you're not signing up for anything. Just text watch, the word watch, to 313131. And when we go live from the field this week, we go live on some of these hunts, we go live on cool stuff, we'll text you those updates and just say, hey, so-and-so, Nate's going live on this pronghorn hunt. Make sure you stay tuned. So again, make sure you do that, guys. You'll appreciate it. You'll get some really cool footage. So doing the pronghorn hunt this week, we've been talking about it the last couple weeks. We have a ton of moisture, especially here in Colorado where I'll be hunting. With all that moisture, the waterhole hunting isn't as good. It's still a very great way to harvest these animals. You're just going to put your time in. Instead of maybe having these bucks come in every day or a certain time every day, you might have to sit on water for a couple days to really get that opportunity just because these animals are drinking everywhere. Me personally, I can't do it. I have a hard time sitting on water for pronghorn. I want to be active. I want to chase them. I want to stalk them. So all the footage that we'll bring you this week on my hunt, we'll be stalking. We'll be using decoys. We'll be crawling around. We'll be sneaking up. We'll use everything we possibly can to bring you a spot and stock hunt on pronghorns. So we're excited about that, hunting real high plains grasslands, but mountain pronghorn for the most part, and it's going to be exciting. So make sure you follow through on that hunt. You'll really enjoy it. Last thing is certainly not least, the mule deer. Right now we're still seeing them in those big groups. They still are velvet. They're not going to lose that velvet to the first week of September, but we're seeing some of the bigger bucks breaking off of the groups, and same thing, nice to see. We like to see that because one, it's easier to sneak up on these animals. It's easier to approach these animals when they're independent, not so many eyes watching you, but it also kind of shows us some role of dominance. So all of a sudden you're trying to say, hey, that buck that I thought was big, I've been watching from a long distance, I see him breaking up, now I know that he's that big dominant buck. So again, we're watching a lot of animals right now, but we're literally kind of scouting and preparing for a very big fall, doing everything. I mean, sheep, pronghorn, goats, bears, elk, deer, everything that we can hunt, we're going to bring you live from the field. So just make sure you stay tuned. It's going to be a great fall. But those are the animals that I personally have been on. And guys, again, if you're just joining me, I'm Nate Zielinski. Again, huge thanks for everybody watching. We got a lot of new platforms tonight, so really excited to bring you that stuff. So if you're again new, welcome. And as always, if you have questions, comments, concerns, anything that you're watching, if you want to ask it, comment below, tag your friends, bring everybody into this conversation. But again, ask your questions. We'll answer them live on the footage right now. We got a producer right behind us, right in front of me, and he'll read your question aloud. So send us your questions. We're going to kind of scroll through all the pages right now, and we'll definitely answer some questions. We're going to start on with our topic tonight of actually putting these animals on the ground. But as you have questions, guys, we'll answer them. So bring the questions, absolutely. First thing we're going to talk about is archery equipment. Obviously, we're all bow hunters here. We love the opportunity to chase these animals literally with stick and string. And with that said comes up the topic of shot placement. Every single year, I mean, all year long we deal with this, and we got people always asking us questions. Hey, I'm a hunter. I hunt in this particular pattern. I believe my dad taught me this. My morals are to shoot this. There's a million things that you can talk about with shot placement, where you shoot, what you don't shoot, what is a very good shot versus a bad shot. To tell you the truth, before we even get into this, I'm going to tell you right now, this is my opinion. By no means do you have to live by it. By no means is anybody saying that it's right. I mean, we have all seen these animals have extremely lethal shots in some very weird ways, and we have all had amazing shots where you literally do a textbook shot and possibly that animal goes further than it should, or the animal doesn't get recovered. There's a lot of things that go into it. So again, things happen. It's human nature. It's a live animal. They're not all built the same. Things go wrong. Things happen. But I'm going to walk you through what my opinion is. I guided big game hunts for 10 years. I've seen hundreds and hundreds of animals hit the ground. I've dissected hundreds and hundreds of these animals. So we're going to literally walk you through what I think is a good shot, shots that I think you should take, and shots that I think you should avoid. So we're going to walk you through all that. Again, it's my opinion. You can agree with it, you can disagree with it, but I'm going to walk you through what I think is whether it's a good lethal shot, and we'll kind of go through that. And again, hopefully it helps you out. With that being said, we're going to start off talking about archery equipment. First thing we're going to talk about, guys, I want to talk about my arrow itself before we actually jump into things. Now, I don't want to get into the weights of arrows. I don't want to get into all the actual fine-tuning pieces of archery equipment. There's just one thing that I do to an arrow that most people don't. Now, there's also, with this concept, there's a lot of target shooters. There's a lot of amazing archers that are probably watching this feed that when I talk about this are going to cringe just for the fact that we all put so much emphasis onto our smart bows. I'm shooting the Rain 7. I mean, it is literally the smartest bow ever made. I mean, you can fine-tune everything about this bow to get true arrow flight. I mean, everything about it is amazing to do that fine adjustability. The reason I'm able to do what I'm going to talk about is because of that bow. I have that smart technology, and I'm able to fine-tune my bow to shoot the arrow that I want to. But I want to talk about crestings on an arrow. When it comes time to seeing a shot, to watching an animal, to determining how much recovery time you have to give an animal before you go looking for that animal, it all comes down to you, the shooter, to say, where did that arrow hit? Did that arrow hit where I thought it hit? Did it hit where it was supposed to hit? And there's no doubt in the heat of the moment, early in the day, late in the day, low light periods. I mean, heck, there's a million things that go wrong. So many times that we shoot, and a lot of times we see that arrow hit, we know everything was perfect. There's other times where we shoot, and I'm like, I have no idea what happened to that arrow. I shot, it felt good, everything looked great, but after 15 feet out of the bow, I have no clue where that arrow went. And that happens. I've had a lot of animals where I shot, and I'm like, did I hit him? And then poof, he falls over, and you're like, yeah, obviously I did. But there's other times where you shoot, and they disappear out of sight, and you have no idea. I mean, there's people that I've heard, especially I had customers back in the day that, I smoked him, it was great. And I'm like, man, didn't sound like you hit him. And, you go find your arrow, and they totally missed. A lot of things happen, but the thing we're going to talk about is cresting on an arrow. When it comes time to actually building an arrow and doing that, number one, I like fletchings, hopefully somewhat of an off color. I don't like black. I don't like brown. I like a bright green because usually in the fall, hopefully a lot of the stuff I'm going to be hunting is going to be, that tan grass or somewhat dying grass. So hopefully that green stands out. White as my cock vein, again, obviously knowing where that is, knowing what it is, it flies good. But my biggest thing here is I put cresting, more so than my veins, more so than my fletchings. My biggest thing is I put cresting. So I put cresting right here in front of my veins, I also put a real small piece right here. Now this is going to change the weight of my arrow. I mean, it is minor. I mean, it is hardly anything. But in true perfect arrow flight, it can be something. So again, you have to make sure that your bow is adjustable, something like the Rain 7, and you can make this arrow fly true. The reason I do this is when I shoot at an animal, this arrow goes in. Whether I get full penetration and it zips through, or I hit some bones, or whatever the case may be, if this animal turns to run away and I only see one cresting, I know that I have on the front of this cresting, I have 14 inches. On the back of it, I have 16.5 inches of penetration. So I'm shooting a pronghorn. If that front cresting, that little strip right there is gone, I know that my broadhead is on the opposite side of that animal. If I'm shooting a big mule deer, I know that I'm barely getting through, but I'm still getting through. I know if I shoot an elk, I'm not all the way through, but I know I'm into both lungs. The reason for that, if I see this cresting, I know I don't have enough penetration depending on the animal I'm shooting. And instead of having an hour recovery time, I might give it 3-4 hours. I might watch the way I walk in. I might back up due to my wind. Again, it's all decision making, but the worst thing you can usually do on an animal is push that animal. Let that animal bed down, let that animal, kind of pass away. So the biggest thing you want to avoid is pushing that animal from its original resting spot. So for me, this gives me the examples at which I need to know that I made that lethal shot. Again, for me, it's just a marking system. I know if that cresting right there is gone, most animals that I'm shooting, I know I have a lethal shot. I'm into both lungs. I have, again, a very lethal shot. If all of a sudden that's showing, I have to start asking myself, what kind of animal is it? Where is my shot placement? What am I dealing with there? If all of a sudden they're all gone, you're good to go. But again, very simple, adds a little bit of weight that might throw off your arrow flight. You're going to have to tune some things out, make sure it's still paper tuned, make sure you're still flying good. But as long as you can get that to fly good, I'll tell you what, it is a great indicator. It helps you see the arrow fly. It's really going to help you once you hit that animal and make a good decision. And if you could recover that animal quicker later, or just really know what happens. I mean, we've all been there. You take that shot and you're like, what happened? I have no idea. I shot, he jumped, everything looked great. And I have no idea from that point on. So at least this is going to give you a good idea of what you're dealing with. So that's the first start of actually shooting these animals and getting that on the ground is talking about that arrow there, and that's how I personally am shooting that. Next thing we're going to talk about is actually shooting that animal. Now, deer hunting versus elk hunting is a major difference for me personally as the hunter. The number one thing we're going to talk about very first of all is the shoulder blade. So we have a deer here on the ground. We're going to go to that here in just a minute and pan to it. Guys, we actually were planning on doing this this live feed tonight from Bass Pro Shops, and we had a life-size mount, a big taxidermy of a full-size bull, but our Wi-Fi wasn't quite good enough, so we couldn't go live from that with an actual true animal. So guys, we're using a good old decoy that's been, a good old target that's been out in the sun a little bit, but you'll generally get the idea from that. But first thing we're talking about is shoulder blade shooting. Now, the reason we bring this up is because there's a major difference of some major big game versus some smaller big game. So you're shooting a big mature elk, a big bull. You're shooting a bull moose. Animals like this that have a thicker shoulder blade. They're having a bigger blade actually, and the ridge separating that blade, right where it comes down into that top joint, that ridge will get thicker on those elk and on that moose. I know a lot of people, myself included, that on a whitetail, on a mule deer, we can shoot that shoulder, we can penetrate that shoulder, and we can actually get at the heart on this animal and make a very lethal shot. When it comes time to elk and moose, you want to avoid that shoulder blade. Now, I'm sure there's people out there right now that are like, man, I shoot a heavy arrow, I'm shooting 80 pounds, I can penetrate that shoulder all day long. In the right conditions, yes, you shoot insane amount of energy, your kinetic energy on impact is through the roof, you will penetrate that shoulder. It happens. Generally speaking, the average hunter, I'm shooting a 70-pound bow, that type thing. A lot of times I can break through that shoulder, but I'm only getting that 3-4 inches, 6 inches, 7 inches of penetration. And that's generally speaking not quite enough to make that lethal shot. So on an elk, on a moose, we're avoiding that shoulder blade altogether. And that's a huge, huge thing. Guys, I see it all the time. I see guys pulling up, shooting that shoulder. There's no point for it. Shoot behind the shoulder. break down those lungs. It's going to bleed out your meat. Your meat's going to taste better. The animal's going to be on the ground, and it's a very successful shot. So again, on an elk, we're avoiding that shoulder. Now, to all the whitetail hunters, all the mule deer hunters out there, it's going to be situation to situation. Me personally, I still shoot them through the lungs. I don't want to deal with that shoulder. I don't want to risk not having great penetration. So for me personally, I am all about shooting them in the lungs all the time. So that's my thought process there. Shoot him in the lungs. Now, again, on the whitetail and the mule deer, if all of a sudden I'm there, I'm at full draw, and he doesn't quite step out to where I think he's going to be, all I can see is that shoulder. That's when I have to ask myself, hey, should I take that shoulder shot? That's the only shot I have. I know I can get a good shot on it. That's a situation in which you, the hunter, have to ask yourself yes or no. On the elk, you can't see those double lungs. You're holding off. That's just a rule to follow. So again, try not to break down that shoulder on an elk, on an elk or on a moose. The shoulder blade's just too rough. Now, guys, I'm going to continue talking about this down here. Then we're going to go to some questions. I know we got a bunch of questions here, but we're going to actually jump down here and we're going to talk about some of the vitals on some of these big games here real quick. So if you guys will join me down here real quick. So, guys, we got our fantastic mule deer here, or excuse me, on a whitetail. Again, this is just a target. We were hoping to have an actual animal here to kind of walk you through this, but didn't quite happen. But regardless, this is going to give you a run-of-the-mill idea. The big thing we're going to talk about is that shot placement and avoiding that shoulder. So everybody knows the general basics of the animal. You know, your shoulder blade comes up, you follow that crease, comes up here, widens out. Just this side of it, you're going to actually have that ridge dividing that comes into that joint right here. Generally speaking, on a totally broadside animal, your heart is going to be protected kind of right where that shoulder blade comes down and meets up with that joint. So that lower portion of the shoulder blade, which is actually the hardest and the thickest, is actually going to protect that heart for the most part. Now, obviously, if you can get a quartering away shot where the animal is slightly quartering away, you can get in there and get to that heart in a lot of situations. Generally speaking, especially on an elk total broadside shot, that shoulder blade is going to be blocking a good portion of that heart, and it's going to protect that heart from that great shot. So we're looking at ourselves at that nice lung shot, which is right here. Now, the lungs are going to come out somewhat flat off the top up here. They're going to come back a ways, and they kind of go back at an angle as they come down. So they're not big round. They're going to come up top and kind of come back as a triangle sitting on top of itself. The reason we talk about this is everybody sees this crease right here, right? On a deer, your lung's still sticking back and kind of covered right there behind the liver's right behind that. But your lung's coming back a ways. Everybody is still shooting for that crease. I mean, you talk to the average hunter, and they're putting their arrow in the crease. They're putting it 1 inch behind that crease. And it's great. It absolutely kills animals. The problem is you have a little bit of a wind. You have a little bit of a flinch. Your back tension is not right. Things happen, and you don't always hit perfect. Now, if we're pro shooters, I would do it all the time. But again, most of us aren't championship level shooters. If you go to the range, can you put 100 arrows inside a 1 inch dot? Most of us can't. I can't. I know I can't. So when I'm shooting at this animal, if this is my crease right here, I'm putting my arrow back here. Give myself 3-4 inches. I make sure that when I drop back, I'm obviously still in the lung right here. It's no problem. But that way, even if I'm off a little bit, I'm still not shoulder blading that animal, especially on an elk. When you're shooting those elk, that shoulder blade is so hard to penetrate, even with the strongest arrow, most energy, sharpest broadhead, all that. It just, things fail. Even if you have a strong bow, great kinetic energy, and a great broadhead, you're still only going to have that lethal shot maybe half the time. Why chance it? We owe it to these animals to have great recovery. We don't want to be that rough name of bow hunting that wounds animals. So again, the lung shot is going to be most lethal, so make sure you stick to that. So again, give yourself some distance. So with that said, I find that crease, I go mid-body, I pull it back 3-4 inches. I mean, on elk, you're good 6-7 inches, to be totally honest with you. I mean, I see a lot of shots that are just right at that combination of lung-liver, and you're back almost 11 inches. I believe a full-blown lung on an elk is 11 by 17. So your front portion is about 11, it drops back 17 on that true, actually blown-up lung on an elk. So again, 11 by 17 is that full target. It starts up here on the shoulder and comes back, so you have some room on that animal. The other big topic is high versus low. I always go mid-body. I know that I'm in the lungs, and I know that I have great options either way if I get some deflection. Here's the thought process. A lot of guys will go high. The concept of high is you're going through the lungs high, and then that lung is filling up breaking down that animal faster. So again, that lung fills up, it starts to suffocate itself. So more so than a bleed out, which actually is going to start to affect the brain, you fill up that lungs, which causes a suffocation and makes that animal pass away that much quicker. So a lot of guys are shooting higher to fill that lung cavity up to make that animal, go away that much faster and die that faster. My issue with going higher is two things. Number one, when I go higher, I lose some blood trail. I'm still pumping blood. I still have a blood trail, but most of the blood is inside the cavity, therefore not having as much on the external side of the body, and I'm not having that amazing blood trail that I could have at mid-body or slightly lower. But the biggest reason why I don't go high is on a deer, you have a void. On an elk, you have a major void. But all these animals can inflate their lungs, and right here below the spine, so you have your spine, you have ribs coming down, and right in here you actually have a void, where when these animals are relaxed and that lung is somewhat relaxed and sitting lower, you have on like a deer, it's probably like 1.5 inch void that comes right back through here, right above your lung, and goes right back down to that liver. If you literally, on a deflated lung, go right into that void, an arrow can pass through, and as long as you have a fairly clean arrow, most of these animals will run off and absolutely have no issues in life. An hour later, they're eating grass. I mean, it's like a bee sting. Obviously, they just had something pass through their body. It can get a little more major than that, but literally, if you hit that void just right, not breaking a rib, not connecting with the spine, go right between that top of that lung and the lower portion of that spine, you can literally pass through an animal and not cause damage. And that's my fear. On an elk, it's much bigger. That void is large. We see so many hits that are high arrow shots, goes right through that void. People are like, oh, it was a little high, but I think I'm good. We're looking for the animal, and all of a sudden you look over and he's bugling at you. I can't tell you how many times I've seen arrows go through that void and not have these animals on the ground. So again, I protect myself. Again, I account for me having some sort of failure. So I find that crease, pull back 3-4 inches, mid-body. That way, even if I'm high, I'm still not in the void. I also stayed in mid-body to where if I hit where I'm supposed to be hitting, I'm going to get good blood on the outside because the lung's going to fill halfway, so I'm going to start getting good blood on the outside, so I have a great trail for myself to follow. I'm also going to get enough up there to where I start that suffocation process. So again, for me, mid-body, 3-4 inches back on that crease, I'm absolutely going to be set. Now, the reason I talk numbers, I talk about how far back things are, because that's when all of a sudden you, the hunter, might be faced with decision making of if that animal's quartering to me, quartering away, or broadside. Obviously, quartering away, we love. The idea of quartering away, you get lung and you might possibly get into that liver, or excuse me, that you get the lung and into the heart right here protected by that shoulder blade at that angle. So you can put yourself more forward into the cavity, more veins, more arteries, everything a little bit more lethal as you go forward. So the quartering away shot we like because it puts it right there where it should be. But the quartering to you shot, so coming in at an angle like this, is where it gets rough. So when I'm looking at an animal, so I have an animal coming at me, it's quartering slightly to me, I have to ask myself what that angle is. And if I put my arrow right here in the crease and it hits right here, I draw myself an imaginary line and I make sure that I can get double lung. In my opinion, one lung is not lethal, 2 is lethal. That's what I'm trying to ask myself. So when I'm drawing back, I'm in full draw, and I'm looking at these animals, I have to ask myself, where's this line? Right here, on this animal at this angle, if I came in from right here, I'm just barely going to miss this lung on this other side, so that's not quite good enough. If I turn it just a little bit, I'm going to get into that second lung, I'm going to have a lethal shot. So every time I draw back, I literally look right through the animal, I look at the angle at which I'm at, and I ask myself, am I going to be able to get to that second lung on this arrow penetration? As this arrow goes through, am I missing the opposite side or am I hitting the opposite side? So that's your thought process there. The last thing we're going to talk about on broadside shots here real quick is, again, the severity. So same type thing, quartering away. When I'm quartering away, if it's too severe, a lot of times I actually might miss this lung right here and go into this lung and possibly heart there. But again, you have to think about that process. You don't want to go too back and just get one lung. You have to get heart and lung, or double lung and possibly a little nicking of the heart if you get the right angle. But again, you're always asking yourself, what angle is that arrow coming through, and is it going to make that lethal shot? The other thing you're considering on a quartering to or quartering away shot, when you are side punching, when an animal is broadside, when you hit a rib, all of the energy is coming through that arrow and it is pushing against that rib. You're going to break that rib in a perfect shot coming flat. It's the same type of thing. Think about a windshield of a car. If you have a very severe windshield, a steep windshield on your car, if you shoot an arrow at your windshield, if that windshield's somewhat flat, that arrow goes right through the windshield. If your windshield is sloped enough, you reject off that and you kind of angle up and you're going to miss. You're going to bounce off due to the severity of that angle. It's just mathematics. So all of a sudden you have a deer quartering, fairly hard away. If you don't have severe energy and power, a lot of times those arrows will hit. You'll glance on basically the curvature of a rib, and you can get glancing motion, and you can push that arrow where it should not be. It's a horrible situation because a lot of times us, the hunter, make a perfect shot. That arrow hits exactly where it needs to go to get long and heart, or double long heart, double long straight, where literally the way it should be, you should have a perfect shot, but all of a sudden that arrow hits a rib and glances, and it rolls down here and comes out the chest, or it rolls down. We've seen it a million times. So again, the more severe the angle, the more opportunity of failure as that arrow can glance off and go where originally point of intent was not intended. So again, think about that. The more severe the angle, number one, make sure you know where the arrow is going through, make sure it's lethal, but number two, make sure that you're not going to bounce off that rib. So again, more power, more energy. I wouldn't say more speed, but more power, more energy. A lot of times that arrow will continue down that path, break the rib, or continue through the rib, and make that shot. But oftentimes we see that arrow glancing off. So make sure you think about those things when you're taking that shot. Again, 9 times out of 10, I'm trying to wait for that perfect broadside shot, pull it back a little bit, center punch, and you're going to be very successful. The things that we also talk about is a frontal shot. Depending on it's an elk or a deer, number one, frontal shots have to be very close in range. So a lot of times when we're talking about frontal shots, I always say 10 yards or less, or 20 yards or less. 20 yards for me is the max I'm going to take on that frontal. I want to make sure that I can look at that animal. I can see where the two colors of skin, of hide, come together. Dark and light start meeting. That's my shot there. I'm going to see a little bit of a bulge in the center of the chest. I actually pick left or right when I'm actually taking that shot. So a lot of times when we're looking at that center punch, guys will center punch right in the chest. I actually go perfect center. I find that bulge on like an elk, or it's smaller on a deer, and I go just an inch to the right or to the left, because again, if you hit it dead center right where that cage, that rib cage comes together, that's such a hard bone there, it's going to slow that arrow way down. As where if you go just to the side, just an inch or two, all of a sudden you're getting to a softer bone, it's not near as thick, you're going to get much more penetration, and you're going to line yourself down, cutting off all those arteries going into the heart. So think about that. I'm going to jump back in my seat here. But again, on the frontal shots like that, that's my thought process. Find mid-tone bodies where you get those different color choices of the hide. And again, I slide it off just one side or the other. I can let that arrow go in there. But again, for me personally, I have to have extreme amount of power. I have to have extreme accuracy for those frontal shots. So for me personally, 20 yards or less. I love it when it's 10 yards or less. The other big thing is I do not ever like taking a frontal at an angle. So we're talking about that. I don't take frontals from a tree stand. I don't take frontals from any sort of directional change. The only time I'm taking a frontal shot is when I'm looking right down at the animal. I'm on the ground level, shooting flat into that animal to make sure that my trajectory continues down the line at which it should be going. So again, not taking frontals from heights or from down low. For me, frontals is eye to eye. So that's the type of situation on those frontals. The last thing we're going to talk about as far as shot placement with arrows. You hear a lot of guys, you saw it on TV a couple times, a lot of guys will try to shoot them in front of their shoulder blade. So this is a quartering to you shot. I don't recommend it ever. I've seen it done and get lucky. If you time these animals walking, basically where your whole front rib cage comes in and your shoulder blade comes in, if that shoulder blade is back far enough, that kind of scapula, that shoulder blade opens up just a little bit, and you can slink an arrow right through that and go right into that cavity and make a lethal shot. Problem is, you have to time these animals walking. If you go too far back, it pushes that shoulder blade up, so it has to be just a little bit ways back, and you open up a gap to where you can slip that arrow. If all of a sudden you get to the point to where that animal is too far back or too far forward, you hit that, you lose your energy, it trajects, goes to a wrong portion of the animal, and you do not have a lethal shot. So again, quartering to you, trying to shoot in front of the shoulder instead of behind it, can be a very, very touchy shot. So again, I highly do not recommend it. The guys that are doing it are trying to time the animal walking. It's a nightmare. So again, number one, frontal shots has to be flat within 20 yards. Everything else, guys, stick to the double lung. Don't worry about breaking down the shoulder blade. I'm sure a lot of people are asking about it, but don't try to break down the shoulder blade. Shoot them double lung. Pull yourself back to where even on a bad shot, you don't hit the shoulder blade. Give yourself a couple inches. I promise you, you're going to put that animal on the ground, and you're really going to enjoy that hunt. The animal will bleed out faster, so your meat will taste great. It's a great way to lethally put these animals on the ground. Again, avoid the gap, the void up top. Guys, and hopefully that helps you out there. Now, we're going to take a couple questions. Then we're actually going to break in, and we're actually going to talk about muzzle loading in a second, because most of our muzzleloader seasons are also early in the season. So we're actually going to talk about the finer points of muzzle loading and probably some of the things that people don't consider that possibly have cost them losing an animal in the past. So we'll jump into muzzle loading.
Let's talk about your cresting a little bit.
Yeah.
There's stickers and paint. What are you using? What's better than...
You both. I personally use stickers. So when it comes to me, I'm using basically a wrap material. So this is a lightweight wrap material, and I am using a basically, we'll call it 3/4 of a wrap on the front and basically 2 inches on the back. So I'm not using a full cresting that you would have in a package. I cut them down just to where I have a little bit, but paint works very well too. My problem with paint personally is I know it can't be as consistent. So when I dip an arrow into paint, basically I am doing the whole back half of my arrow, which is more than I actually need. A lot of guys are going to crest and then put their veins on top of it. I don't. I put my cresting right in front of my veins just to where that way as these things fly, everything is more aerodynamic. It's just sleeker. And more importantly, I don't need that much weight on the back of my arrow. So again, that's where a lot of guys are cresting all the way up here to the nock. I start right in front of my veins, come down just a little bit. Again, I have a 5-inch piece there. Then I go forward and I basically have a 2 1/4-inch piece right there. I measure them so I know exactly what my distance is. Again, to the front of this cresting. So right here, I know that I have exactly 14 inches. So I know that my average mule deer body is right there, anywhere between a real small animal that might be 13 and a big animal that might be 17. But I know that on a mule deer, if I am up to this first portion of this cresting, that animal is hit hard. I have got 100%. I got both lungs, if not sticking out the other side, and I know that I have a great shot. Pronghorn, if I get it to right here, it's through the other side. On a big moose, if I'm up to here, I am not through the other side, but I know that I have both lungs. So that's my thought process. If all of a sudden it's up here, one lung. If I got that true line on most of the big game, moose, bear, and elk, I got into that second lung, so at least I know I'm getting that bleed out fashion. So that's kind of my concept of the cresting. Again, it helps me. It flies great. I see it fly, so it adds some color to that flight, so I can definitely see the arrow hit a little better. But the biggest thing for me is recovery. We all see these animals turn to run. I know that you're with me. Everybody watching this has seen that. You let that arrow fly, it hits the animal turns to run. We're always looking at each other like, oh, it was buried up to the fletching. And your other buddy's like, man, I think there was 10 inches sticking out. Your other buddy's like, I thought there was 18 inches sticking out. It's one of those things. It happens so fast, it is so hard to judge. But with all of a sudden, when you have big white crestings, you can see very well where that arrow is at and get a true estimation of distance at where that is. So hopefully that helps you out there and can kind of build that up. And you guys can have a good definition of when you make that shot, what's a lethal shot, what's not a lethal shot there. So got another question for us?
I do. Somebody asked about the dead zone, but you covered that in your void that you spoke about earlier. So we talked about this in past shows, but let's hit it again because we're getting a lot of questions. Your opinion on broadheads.
On broadheads. So, guys, I'm old school. So that's basically what it comes down to broadhead-wise. You talk to so many different people, and we're at the age of technology. We are the luckiest bow hunting age group and demographic there's ever been. I mean, the bows, like we're talking about the Rain 7, I mean, it's the smartest bow out there. I mean, the bows are better. They can shoot, and you can fine tune an arrow and broadhead better than we ever have before. You have options. I'm not going to talk about so much cut-on contacts and fixed heads. I'm going to break it down to fixed heads and mechanicals. The mechanicals nowadays fly faster, they fly better, and in a lot of cases, they open up to have a bigger wound. So there is no doubt, as a person following the opportunity, a mechanical head of any kind is going to offer better flight and, in the perfect world, a better cutting diameter. Problem is, to me, anything mechanical has and will fail in time. That's just where I'm at with it. I hate to say it because I have a lot of people out there, I argue with them all day long about this, but who has had a car that has ever, every single day for, 100 years, performed great without breaking? Who in their house has had a dishwasher run their whole life without breaking? Things break. Anything that moves, anything that is mechanical can have failure. And I'm not saying that everything else doesn't, but a fixed head, a head that is developed to stay in place, doesn't have to open to perform, in my opinion, is a better broadhead. So I am all about a fixed head. That's just where it is to me. I want to make sure that when I take this shot, I don't care if I hit a thicker portion of hide, if I hit fat, if I hit a rib, if I hit that front brisket where I immediately get into tendon and muscle. I want to make sure that my head doesn't have to slow down to open. I know nothing has to slide. Nothing can get caught up. I know that my head is performing as it was developed from the manufacturer, from the point of contact to all the way going through. So guys, that's my personal opinion on that. I shoot a lot of different heads. I shoot what heads fly best out of a particular bow, out of the animals that I'm hunting. If I had to pick one broadhead that I would say is my favorite year in, year out, long term, a Magnus Stinger is probably one of the more old school heads out there. But like a Magnus Stinger buzz cut is probably one of my favorite all-time broadheads. I know at one point in time I had shot 3 bulls with the same broadhead without sending it back, without getting sharpened. I shot 3 bulls. I never had one of the bulls leave sight. So again, 3 big bulls. I used the same arrow. I mean, 3 animals through. Shoot at an animal. And I literally had not one of these 3 bulls ever leave my sight before falling over and dying. So again, that's a cut on contact. That's a fixed head. It's old school, but it works great. I mean, I'm shooting a lot of different broadheads out there. This is actually a broadhead that Bass Pro Shops just designed. I'm shooting that. And it's a great head. It's actually got blood on it right there. I'm not sure if you can see it. Shot a bunch of animals with it last year. I had a lot of kills with it. But again, for me, I'm not going to get all into the fine details of exactly which head I'm shooting. The biggest thing for me is I am all about a fixed head. I don't shoot mechanicals just because, again, I think that in 99% of the situations, it is better technology. It is a better broadhead. But I don't want to be caught up in the 1% of having that opportunity of failure. So that's where it is for me. I again, everything mechanical, even though, we all use technology, we all use mechanics, every so often I do let you down to cut out everything that could let me down in the field. So we're going to take one more question, then we're going to talk about muzzleloaders here real quick.
Go from one end of the arrow to the other. What do you think about Illuminox?
Illuminox, absolutely a big fan. I love the idea and concept of seeing that arrow fly. Hang on one second. More importantly, I love the recovery point. I love being able to walk up in low light and be like, man, my arrow's sitting right there. As far as me personally, I am putting cresting on my bow. It doesn't change it that much, but it changes it enough to where if all of a sudden I throw in a Luminoc, which is going to be another, 8 grains, 10 grains, 12 grains, depending on what you're shooting, it's going to put more weight on the back of that arrow. So now all of a sudden I'm changing up just minute, just a couple grains with my cresting, but all of a sudden you throw in a Luminoc on top of the cresting, and it starts to be a little much. I can fine tune it out with the smart bow technology, but for me personally, I care more about the cresting instead of the Luminoc. I can tell you if I didn't have the cresting, I would run a Luminox. So again, for me, I can see the white cresting. So for me, that's my kind of knockoff of the Illuminoc. That's my portion to help me have my visual effect as this arrow flies. So I don't shoot Illuminocs in most situations. I have shot them before. It's not something that I don't shoot, but my average day-to-day arrow does not shoot the Illuminocs. I just have the double cresting, and it gets me by in every situation. It helps me find the arrow. I can see it fly. I can see it hit. Everything about the double cresting is my helping versus that. But by no means do I love them. I think it's an amazing technology. I love to see it fly, but more importantly, I love to have the recovery of the arrow, see what kind of blood I got, smell the blood, all that kind of stuff. Is it lung? Is it liver? Is it heart? All those type things that you can see with that Illuminoc and helping the recovery. Everything I can do to help in the aid of the recovery is huge. So, guys, we're going to take some more questions in a second. We just want to talk about muzzleloaders for a second. Now, I know a lot of us on here are big-time bow hunters. A lot of us are talking about bow hunting, but I have to talk about muzzleloaders because mainly for the fact that I get questions. You hear a lot of people, and I hear this most from muzzleloaders. That's the main reason I bring this up. I talk to a lot of muzzleloaders like, man, them dang bow hunters are out there wounding all the animals. I wish they'd let us muzzleloaders in the woods first so they wouldn't wound the animals. And I hear all this stuff, and whatever, whoever wounds animals, hopefully nobody wounds animals. We don't want wounded animals. You know, we owe it to these animals. I mean, it's a privilege to be able to hunt them. We have to do everything we can as hunters to preserve conservation and do everything we can to have that lethal kill. But regardless, I have a lot of people talking about how muzzleloaders, you know, they're the more pristine weapon, they're better off. But we see a lot of things go wrong when shooting animals with a muzzleloader. And again, most of this stuff can be prevented. So I wanted to talk about this real briefly just because modern muzzleloaders have gotten so good. You know, back in the day, true, you know, flintlock, I mean, true old school muzzleloaders, old smoke poles. I mean, it was, you know, literally a tradition time to where a lot of times when the compound bow came out, a mechanical bow gave you an advantage over a muzzleloader simply for the fact that you weren't, you know, you didn't have an issue with wet powder. You weren't shooting balls. I mean, you actually had a better killing power than the original muzzleloaders. But now that we get into inlines, we get into better power. You know, we have fiber optic sights. We have better bullets. Now all of a sudden, you literally can get into the woods with a very powerful tool. Now in Colorado, an inline muzzle like this is legal. A 209 ignition system is legal, but in Colorado, we still have to shoot a true bullet. So you're shooting on an elk, you're shooting a 50 caliber bullet or larger, and there's no sabots. So we cannot have a rifle bullet with a casing around it. Your bullet has to touch your bore in your rifle. So your bullet has to be that 50 caliber with the true bullet itself. So we're not allowed to use sabots. We're also not allowed to shoot powder pellets. So we have to have raw powder inside, no pre-made pellets of any kind, and we're not allowed to use a scope. So in Colorado, it's an original bullet itself. It's loose powder, and it is open sight. So again, no optics such as a scope. So they still are making it somewhat primitive, even though we have a lot of power. More so than talking about shot placement on that kind of thing, I just want to talk about powder and bullets. There's a major trend out there of creating these amazing bullets out there. You see a lot of different products. You know, I mean, your top bullets out there are going to probably be like a Hornady cast bullet like this and like a power belt. But there's a lot of different bullet technology out there. You have Thor bullets. There's a million different kinds out there. The main thing I want to talk about is the weight retention of your bullet and basically hard or soft. We're going to make it that simple. If you are shooting an extremely soft bullet versus shooting a hard bullet or shooting something in between, you have to know how to adjust your powder and, more importantly, adjust the distance at which you're shooting. So if anything else you pay attention to tonight, pay attention to this. You talk to a lot of guys shooting a soft bullet. One of the softer bullets out there is probably the power belt. This bullet flies probably better than most bullets on the market. This power belt flies extremely accurate, but it's a softer bullet. With this bullet being softer, main reason for me knowing it's softer is I have to adjust my powder and I have to know where I hit this animal. Hang on, guys, 1 second. Sorry about that. So again, talking about a soft bullet. So if I'm shooting a softer power belt bullet, everybody has these guns and they talk to their buddy and they're like, oh, shoot 100 grains of powder. 100 grains of powder is a sweet spot. So very few people ever test that. They pull out their gun, they dump their 100 grains of powder in there, they ram their bullet in there, they shoot it on paper, and it shoots amazing. They're like, man, this is dialed in. I'm shooting good groups. It flies great. Everything's set. And they don't realize that if you're shooting a softer bullet, I'm not just picking on power belts. There's a million different companies out there that shoot power belts. Or shoot muzzle bullets that are soft. So again, a power belt's just an example that I'm using that somewhat you can buy at your store. They make hard bullets too, but there's a good selection of soft bullets. So you take a soft bullet like that, and you have 100 grains of powder. If you shoot that animal at 100 yards, double lung, it's amazing. You get penetration before that bullet opens up, it holds its weight retention, and you have an amazing lethal shot. All of a sudden, you pull a big bull elk to 30 yards and you shoot him in the shoulder. We have a gun. A lot of times with a muzzleloader, we can shoot these animals in the shoulder. It's not an archery equipment. You have a lot of power, so now all of a sudden you can shoot a shoulder blade. You take a softer bullet with 100 grains of powder and you shoot something solid, a shoulder blade of an elk. That bullet goes in literally 4 or 5 inches. It is opening up. It's doing everything it was designed to do, but it has too much power behind it, and all of a sudden it literally blows up with an explosion. That entire shoulder of that elk is shot. He's a 3-legged elk now. But that's all it does. That animal does not have any use of its arm, but it did not get into the lungs. It did not get into the heart. And all of a sudden, this animal runs off, or I should say, a lot of times they fall over, get back up, then they run off. But they're not recoverable. Most times they're not dead. Whether they live the rest of their life or they live another month, that's not the question here. The biggest thing is you don't get penetration because you had too much power, if that makes sense. A lot of people listening are like, what? So literally, if you shoot an elk, again, 30 yards, soft bullet, 100 grains of powder, you don't get that penetration. That bullet blows up. It just turns into a grenade, but you don't get any penetration. You don't get any lethal. You don't get nothing violent inside to get to any of the terminal killing points of the animal. As opposed to if you tone down to 75 grains of powder. So literally, you go down 25 grains of powder, shoot that same soft bullet in the shoulder, the bullet does not have near the energy, so now all of a sudden the bullet gets in there 6-7 inches, starts to open up, and does its job. So, me as the hunter, I'm shooting a muzzleloader. I have to know what I'm shooting. If I'm used to shooting a soft bullet, if my muzzleloader here shoots a softer bullet, better. I want to make sure that my aim point, I want to make sure that my gun shoots truer than anything else out there. So my target impact is the most important thing I'm caring about. So if I know that my gun shoots a soft bullet the best, then I just adjust my powder and know that that's in my head. So, hey, this gun here shoots a soft bullet the best. I'm going to tone it down to 70 grains of powder, 75 grains of powder. And that way I know that I can shoot this animal in the chest. I can shoot it in the shoulder. I can shoot it double long, and I'm still going to get penetration. I'm still going to get that lethal shot. As opposed to guys shooting the opposite, same type thing. If all of a sudden you're shooting an extremely hard bullet, you're shooting like a Hornady Great Plains, literally a solid piece of lead. Maybe you're putting some coating on that. You're shooting a harder, dense bullet, not a lot of technology for expansion. That's a type bullet that I'll bump up to 125 grains because, again, that bullet's not going to open up that much. It's not going to have that impact. I'll overpower that bullet to make sure that I do get that extreme impact to where hopefully within 7-8 inches of impact inside that animal, I start to get some fragments and I start to open it up. So again, softer bullets, I tone down. Bigger bullets, I beef up. And then you can try to find that happy point. For me, in this gun personally, I'm shooting this Hornady FPB. This, for me personally, it's kind of coned out, so it's machined out in the back, so it makes a cap, basically, so it holds that powder, so it seats itself on raw powder extremely well. It's got that polymer tip right there to where it flies true. It gets in there before it starts that expansion. Again, not to say that I have no endorsements with Hornady. It's just a bullet. I have multiple muzzleloaders. I shoot them often. And each muzzleloader shoots a particular bullet better or worse than each other muzzleloader. So again, for me, it's not my preference. It's my gun's preference. I take what the gun shoots best, and then I adjust my powder to adjust to that load. Again, long story short, softer bullet, less powder. The harder the bullet, more powder's added. Again, everybody judges it by, my buddy said 100 grains, so I need to put 100 grains in it. It's not that case. Make sure your gun shoots true, but make sure that you can shoot that animal. Hey, double lung, shoulder blade, frontal. I want to make sure that my load can handle that. Again, all of a sudden you shoot something that's too hard of an impact with too much powder. You get that grenade effect, but you don't get penetration, and a lot of times you don't get that lethal shot. So again, those are small things to think about, guys. So all of tonight's topic was about shot placement. It was about putting those animals on the ground. I truly hope that this was very educational for you, the hunter. I hope that you got something out of this. Again, I know that we've all had that situation. Well, my brother-in-law, Jimmy, he shot an elk here, and he penetrated both shoulders, and there's a lot of situations out there where we had extreme situations. We hit the femoral artery in the back leg, and we had a 10-foot bleed out, and the animal expired. It's not about that tonight. Hopefully, it's things that I personally have seen. Again, I guided for 10 years. I saw a lot of animals. Seen 250 bulls, seen a lot of deer hit the ground with archery and muzzleloader equipment. So again, these are the things that I've seen. It's the things that I have firsthand experience watching these animals pass away. So I know what, in my opinion, what works and what doesn't work. So again, hopefully this was very helpful to you. We're actually going to take one more question here before we kind of wrap it up. But again, guys, just thank you so much for listening, and we hope that this really helped you out here. We're going to take another question.
talking about the expansion on those muzzleloader
Yep.
bullets. Is there a good target to test that out on?
You know, unfortunately, shooting actually a Jello block. I mean, to see a true ballistic jelly is going to be the only way you're really going to see that. They don't have a whole lot of things out there that are going to imitate a true animal impact per se, if you can. But the number one thing a lot of times we will do is we'll shoot multiple targets if you want to have a rough idea. So if you want to have a rough idea, I will take even plywood. So I'll take myself a 1/4 to 3/8 inch thick piece of plywood. I'll put it up in a stand, basically in a target, put my paper target on that, and then behind that I will put a harder target up there. So whether that be a foam target like this deer, or I'll put something that's gonna stop that overall impact, but not have too much, basically morphing of the bullet itself. I'll shoot through the first one. Usually that second one will stop the bullet and catch it and allow me to kind of look at that bullet. But unfortunately, ballistic jelly is going to be the only thing that's truly going to show you what that bullet's going to do. So you can pour that, you can buy it, but ballistic jelly is going to be the best thing you can do. If not, you're going to try to shoot through a series of targets, collect the bullet, and hopefully you see what the first target started to do. It's not going to be amazing, but doing the plywood trick, if you get back there and that bullet's whole, you know it didn't expand near enough. If you know it's blown apart to pieces, you know it was too soft and too much power or too much load power for that general bullet. But it's hard. A lot of it's a process of seeing these animals and getting that rough idea there. I personally found out all this information from shooting ballistic jelly after I had a handful of situations in the woods. Literally, unfortunately, I was guiding. I watched these guys with different bullets shoot these animals, and I'm like, man, it's the worst thing in the world to be the guy when you're like, you smoked him, you hammered him, you're hugging your customer, and all of a sudden you never recover the animal, and you're like, it was perfect. I watched it at 20 yards. And that's when I started to investigate these bullets. I had another buddy of mine who's a muzzle-loading fanatic. We started to break it down to start figuring out what was going on. And that's all it was. It was strictly, again, the powder in the gun itself and how much powder you're pushing out and what that bullet's going to perform at those different pressure ratings. So, guys, again, hopefully that helps. And also, we have to take a second here to give a huge thanks to Bowtech Archery for letting us go live from their feed. A huge thanks to Black Gold, which is new for us joining here. Huge thanks to Sun Enterprise for going live with us tonight. Huge thanks to Bass Pro Shops for going live. Again, those are our newest partners here. But also, again, guys, cannot do it without Bowtech. So huge thanks for giving us their platform. You're probably also going to be seeing us on the Diamond Facebook page, as well as Nate Zielinski. Again, that's my personal page. If you guys like this, you want to have more information, more views from the field, more live footage, make sure you go to Nate Zielinski Facebook page and just like that. Again, it's a brand new page, but again, Nate Zielinski. There's a big elk on the front cover it, but go there, like that page, and you'll get a lot more footage. And again, we're going to be out in the woods tomorrow morning, so make sure you watch the Nate Zielinski page. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to have live footage of elk and deer in the field through the scouting process, and then over the next couple days, we're going to be in the field on a pronghorn hunt. So again, a lot of actual true hunts coming this week. Watch the Bowtech Facebook page, watch my personal Facebook page, and I promise you, you're going to see some live footage, and you're going to see a lot of animals. We're going to have a lot of fun this week. Guys, until then, we'll see you next Monday. Make sure you watch also all the Bowtech stuff. There's a lot of other great feeds coming this week, but I personally will be back, as I am every Monday, 7 p.m. Pacific on Monday nights, guys. We'll have a lot more coming for you. Thank you so much for joining us. On Monday nights, guys, we'll have a lot more coming for you. Thank you so much for joining us.